Welcome to Wealth Mavericks. On today's episode, we're talking about the financial struggles that so many doctors are quietly facing, and the reminder that if that's you too, you are far from alone. You gave up a decade of your life to be able to serve others, and now you have to play catch up, but the more you make, the more goes away in taxes. So if you feel like your financial life isn't as buttoned up as it should be, I just want you to know you are not alone. Welcome back to Wealth Mavericks. Today's episode is one I think a lot of doctors likely need to hear. We have learned so much working with well over 100 members and counting. And one of the biggest things is this: many doctors are struggling with the exact same things. And yet a lot of them feel like they're the only ones. There's often some embarrassment tied in with how they view their own financial situation or their own financial acumen. But we're here to tell you, you are not alone. And while we want that to be comforting to you, we also want it to be a bit of a wake-up call that more and more of your peers are realizing this and seeking help to solve these struggles. And that help is, of course, out there for you too. Now, our members fall across a spectrum. On the one hand, we have quite a few who are absolutely thriving financially. They've made a lot of good moves, they've built serious wealth, but their tax bill is still astronomically high, and so we help them with that. On the other end of the spectrum, though, there are quite a few whose tax bill is just the beginning of their struggles. And for them, these challenges also include their spending, their lack of clarity on where their money is going, maybe the debt they carry, or the lack of understanding they have when it comes to the different accounts they hold, the policies they carry. It's as if they've just been swept along over the years trying to piece together their financial life. And then, of course, we have a lot who fall somewhere in between. But there are three very common struggles that we see again and again with our members. And the first one is probably the least surprising. It's what brings everyone to us in the first place, and that's their tax bill. But it's not just the number. It's the emotion attached to the number. For so many, taxes go beyond financial frustration, and there is serious anger there, discouragement, helplessness, sometimes even sadness, because you guys look at what you've paid and it's more than money. Like that money going not to you and your family, but to the government, it represents time that you've spent away from your family, time that you spent training to serve others. It maybe represents the debt you've gone into for your education, sacrifices you've made, missed holidays, late nights, early mornings, and just the pressure of carrying so much. You gave up a lot to get where you are. I hear Bob say it all the time. It's why he has such a heart. It's like you gave up a decade of your life to be able to serve others, and now you have to play catch up. But the more you make, the more goes away in taxes. We talked to some whose parents sacrificed significantly to help you get where you went or where you are. Your spouse has sacrificed, maybe your kids. And then you finally reach this income level that you've worked so hard for, and then you see an enormous piece of it just going away. And when we meet with prospective members and our members, like we feel that emotion. And it's infuriating and defeating. And it can also feel a little lonely because there is a sense of guilt in even admitting that, because you know you make a great income and you know that a lot of people would love to have this problem, must be nice. Even your CPA has, we've heard, has said, well, it's a good problem to have, but that doesn't mean that it's not painful. Both things can be true. You can be deeply grateful for the income you have and still feel anger and frustration at how much of it is going to taxes. You can love your work and still wonder if it's even worth it to work more. And you can be successful on paper and still feel like you're just not getting ahead the way you should be. And it does not make you greedy to want a better answer. So if you feel those strong emotions about your taxes And if you feel like, something's got to give, I can't keep doing it this way, you are not alone, but you're also not stuck. So there's an answer. The second thing we hear, and that you are not alone in, is if your financial life is not as together as you think it should be. Just because someone is successful and respected in their chosen field does not equate to having it all together behind the scenes. And that, of course, goes for every area of life, but especially financially. Oftentimes, there's this belief that as income grows, so does financial literacy and knowing what to do with it. But that's almost never the case. And in fact, as income grows, it becomes easier to just ignore the chaos and the lack of clarity that underlies your whole financial life. And many who we talk to are making more than they ever have, more than they ever thought they would, but they still somehow feel like cash flow is tight or there's never enough. Some are carrying more debt than they even realize. Some feel behind in saving for retirement. And there's just this uncomfortable feeling of, I should be further along. I should be doing better than this. It is really one of the most common things we see. So if you feel like your financial life isn't as buttoned up as it should be, I just want you to know you are not alone. And our goal at Terra Firma, when you work with us, is to finally get it all in one place and to make the best recommendations, not just for how to lower your taxes, but to maximize and be more efficient with everything that you keep and everything that you've worked so hard for. Because once you see that full picture, you can start making better decisions. And that leads directly to the third thing we see all the time. Because for many, the issue is not intelligence or discipline. It is that no one has ever taught them how to think about or manage money at this level. And it's realizing that you were never given the education or guidance to even really know what buttoned up should look like. And that's a different kind of frustration. Obviously, y'all are very intelligent, educated, capable people. You're experts in your field and you carry enormous responsibility. So you feel like when it comes to this area, you should have that same level of expertise. But you're not taught that. You're not taught about taxes, entity structure, investment strategy, insurance, estate planning. Like there's so much to it and how all the pieces are meant to fit together. So people who come to us, they feel like beginners. Oftentimes they'll apologize, like, I'm sorry, that doesn't make sense to me, or, oh, I've never learned that. But that shouldn't feel embarrassing because where were you supposed to learn it? And so once we start teaching people these things and opening their eyes and connecting the dots, as Bob says, people are like, why didn't anyone ever teach me this? And the reality is most financial education is either too basic at your income level or too fragmented for you to see the full picture. Joe and I actually talked about that on our last episode, how it's not a lack of information, it's actually too much information out there that it becomes completely overwhelming. It's like, which advice is right? And for the advice that is right, how does it apply to my specific situation? And as you grow your income and you grow in your net worth, it becomes a lot to manage. So if you feel like you aren't as financially savvy as you should be, you are very far from alone. But it can be learned. And then once you learn it, you can teach it to the people around you. You can teach it to your kids, or at least start spreading the word that there's a different way. And of course, that becomes a lot easier when you have the right team in your corner. So the point today is that whether your biggest frustration is your high tax bill or the lack of clarity or organization in your own financial life, or just the lack of education and knowledge you feel you have, you are not alone. And as I said, at the same time, you are not stuck unless you choose to stay stuck. Ask the right questions, do your due diligence, and decide if solving these struggles is worth finally doing something different. So as a reminder, we take things one step at a time here. We talk about it often. We know that trust has to be both given and earned. So we have a very specific process for you to be able to just get some information before deciding whether to take a first step or a next step. So if you want to see how much we could help you save in taxes, you can fill out the form that we will link in the show notes. and we'll reach out with an estimate and more information about our membership. I always tell people, like, at least then you'll know. Even if you decide not to take a next step, at least you'll have more information than you did before. So I hope this was valuable. Thank you as always for being here, and I look forward to talking to you again. Until then, go be a wealth maverick.